Julie Labrie, president of BlueSky Personnel Solutions. So Julie, you and I have been working for quite some time together. I work on your marketing initiative. So my name is Keika Dasgupta, just as an introduction. But you and I have had some conversations right now about how the business world is feeling generally, because in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people are feeling fear and uncertainty, and they're just worried generally. So I'm really glad that we're having this opportunity just to connect with each other, because I feel like the conversations we're having right now is something that I think a lot of people would probably find value in. So if you're good with it, we'll just kind of jump in and get started.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So you have been in recruiting for almost a couple of decades now.
Yeah, just over 20 years now.
Yeah, amazing. So you are one of those people who has that business longevity, where you've probably seen a number of different what we would call crises from the past, right? So whether it was SARS or the recession of 2007 and 8, for example. So your business has gone through those peaks and valleys that a lot of other businesses might be new to this. And I was just wondering, when you went through those phases in the recruitment and hiring world, what were some of the key lessons you took away from that we can now apply today to our COVID-19 world?
Well, I have to say that right now what's different is that it's not so much, we didn't have any warning of this was going to happen. With the typical recession, you kind of see the writing is on the wall, the economy is kind of up and down, and there's some signs. But with this, what's happening right now is that there's been no sign from night and day. We just went from you're working today and tomorrow you're in lockdown. So from a reference point, it's completely different. Now, having said that, past recession, 2001, 2001, and then 2008 and 9, we could see it was coming. The writing was on the wall, like you could see it. So what was important for us back then, it was to be flexible with our clients. We knew that they had some financial difficulties. They were on they had to shrink, they had to lay off a bunch of employees. And what we did then is to be flexible with them. So we worked with them, we offered them better rates. So it was a win-win for both of us. We could get some business, and we also helped them staff, especially on a temporary basis. That was really helpful back then. Right now, what's happening is that the clients still need staff. They still need to operate. Some cases, they had to let go some of their staff because they just simply don't have any work for them, only because it's on hold. And it was funny because just a few days ago, I've heard someone saying it's like the economy is in a coma. So we're just waiting and to see what's going to happen. But the reality is that there's still a shortage. I was reading an article just today that in the US, there were about 6 million jobs posted in February. And 6 million postings, that's a lot of openings. Now in Canada, I don't have the stats, but I would think that if you look back to what it was in February or January, there was a lot of openings. So the shortage is still real. It's not going to end. Right now, what has happened is that we just shifted the needs. So for instance, logistics, transportation, food industry is booming, is extremely busy. Companies are reinventing themselves by offering deliveries. They had to hire drivers to do that. So we've shifted some of the economy and some of the people that have been laid off, but the reality is that there are still lots and lots of opportunities out there. When we get the go-ahead back from our government, I can reassure you, and I'm pretty sure I'll be surprised if we don't go back to, hey, I need help, can't find anybody, what do we do now, basically?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that even though certain businesses have had to pause, there are other businesses that are having to ramp up. And so when we watch the headlines and we see the news that's happening, it can feel pretty scary, but at the same time, we have to look at the full context of our business picture. So as you said, our economy's gone into a coma. It's in a bit of a pause right now. There are things that are still moving, so we have to keep that in mind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to make sure that we think positive. And what we're doing at Blue Sky is that my team is still recruiting and interviewing because we know that once we get the go ahead back from our clients, we'll have those candidates. People are still looking. Some of them will say, hey, listen, I don't want to go for interviews, which we understand, but clients have been accommodating with Skype interviews or Zoom interviews. Um, but we've been telling them, listen, do your phone screening, do everything you can from home now, because once you do return to work, to the normal new, um, you'll be ready and you'll be ahead from your competition. You'll have those people. And not only that, you will have formed relationships during this time that will really make an impact on the candidates. So I've always said people that are going to win at the end are the employers who are continuing their recruitment throughout this crisis. Although it's not a recession, we're just on hold.
Right. Yes, that's a really great point. So when we've got hiring managers or HR managers that might feel like they're in a bit of limbo, they might be feeling fear. It's very human to feel almost paralyzed by that and not feel like you can move. What would you tell some of them in terms of, as you said, prepare for the long game, think about what needs to happen? What are the things that they should and could be doing right now to kind of keep things going that's in their benefit? And where do they need to make some adjustments in the moment as they prepare for the long game?
Hmm. Let me just make sure that I understand your question. Ask your question again because I've lost you halfway through.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's all good. So I was saying that many HR and hiring managers may feel a sense of fear right now, and it's very human to feel like we're paralyzed and we can't make a move. But you had said keep your eye on the long game. And so what are the things that HR and hiring managers can do right now, either business as usual or where they make adjustments given the time that will help them in the long
Yeah, what they need to do now when it comes to recruitment, they need to keep going. They need to continue to interview, pre screen from home those candidates. The reality is that those candidates right now are more available than ever. They're home, they're free. In some cases, they're working, but they'll be more reachable. So, they'll be available for phone interviews, Skype interviews. You'll have a head start for as to when the time comes that we can just go back to our normal life. Um, and really, it's going to make an impact on the candidates. If you do that now, when during the time of crisis, that you talk to them, that you're still in touch with them, it does help. I know that some of my team members have shared with me recently that they've spoken with candidates and the candidates are venting to them, but they also appreciate and understand that clients are not moving forward. But at the same time, they're happy that we're still talking to them. We're not in the holding pattern either, because it's not going to help us. Um, and also with the clients that are continuing through that phase of interviewing and pre-screening, um, it's going to make them feel better as well, because it's going to feel like they're still doing their normal position in a sense. And it's important for the hiring managers also to reassure their team as to what's happening. Communicating and over communicating right now with your team is extremely important. I've read that over and over again in the past 2 weeks, that it's important for the employees to be reassured, and also not only that, know what's happening and also be open. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, we may have to make some cuts, but right now it may not be in the like, you just have to be open with them and discuss that with them, because they're that fear. Everybody's on that fear mode and scared of what's happening because it's never happened before.
Right. And that's a really great point, is that even when you have no news to share, you still should share. Like you said, oversharing, right? Just to let people know where we are, what the collective management is thinking. Even in a place of fear, it's okay to share that fear and say, yeah, we might have to let people go. We don't know yet. But just being open like that helps the employees feel like they are in control in some way with the
Mhm.
leadership, right? Yeah.
And I do want to add that right now, yes, if you have to let go your staff as a company, right now, I hate to say it, but the government has stepped in. to help you as an employee to get some money. So because they know it's different than a regular layoff because your company is going through difficult times financially. So it's a different, yes, it's sad that you have to be let go, but at the same time it's temporary, and you've got the government to back you up in a sense. So you've got some money, if I can be
Yeah. No, but we
positive
should
in
take
that sense.
advantage.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
the government is there to help you right now. There's
Yeah.
different programs, and also I'm really happy that the government has stepped in to help businesses as well with a program, because they know that they need to keep the economy going, right? By doing that, then we're hoping that most employers are still going to keep their employees on board as a result of their, you know,
Yeah.
their their action
Yeah.
basically.
We are all in this together, quite literally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell me, so you were talking about some of your team talking to candidates. I know you've got the headphones on because I know you
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time talking to people. Um, when it comes to French bilingual candidates, we know that over the past few years, the competition has been fierce. They've been in such high demand that it was really a job seeker's game. Um, from the perspective of where we are today, now in the midst of this pandemic, uh, is bilingual talent just as competitive? Is it just as hard to find them today? Or is there any type of opportunity for companies to really connect with those bilingual candidates now more easily than they have in the past, for example?
Well, they can connect with them more easily because they're home. So what happens right now is that when we're reaching out to those candidates, they're available to talk, and they talk to us longer. They've got more flexibility, more availability. The same with us, with our clients. The client I've been speaking with recently, I've been on the phone with them 45 minutes, an hour, which normally never happens. You know,
Correct.
it's always so quick when we can reach them, right?
Yeah.
So now more than ever, people are available and willing to talk. So those candidates are there. In terms of the shortage, it's still there. It hasn't stopped. It's not because we're in this pandemic right now that the shortage is gone.
Right.
It's still real. It's still there. So candidates are still hard to get. But again, companies should continue to recruit to get those candidates, because how we do it is that we approach those candidates directly by finding them online. We have all of our network, so we can reach out and say, hey, we've got this opportunity there. And also, one of the things that could be reassuring to candidates is that if the client knows that they may not need them to start right away, but they're willing to do interviews, but without having them to leave their home, that's also another plus. We have a client right now that's interviewing candidates on Skype. And every time we approach the candidates, the first question that comes up is, do I have to meet them in person? And the answer is no. It really is reassuring in a sense. So it's good that clients are still moving forward. And I'm going to repeat myself, but those companies are going to win over their competitors,
Right.
but because they've kept going,
Yeah.
even if they have to push their start date,
Yeah.
but they will win at the end.
And it sounds to me like this process that you're talking about, what it really enables is it enables the companies to start to create some relationships with candidates. And I feel like that's been the key to your success in recruitment all along, is that you have a network that where you definitely go out and cultivate those relationships with those French bilingual candidates. So then it's a warm door, it's a warm call, not a cold call. And so if companies, like you said, might not be prepared to hire just right now or might not know what's coming up next, if they still open those relationships and they'll open those doors and make those calls today to keep in touch, then as you said, when things unpause or unfreeze, they're going to be ahead of the game and they can keep going.
Yeah, the networking and the opportunities for us to keep in touch with those people is so important. That's always how we've done it. We filled so many positions just because we've known our network and we've known who was where, who wanted to work where. And, you know, it's a big plus for us because when we're talking to candidates, we may not have a position for them today, but if we know that something comes up, it's near their house, it may not be the right salary, but sometimes the fact that it's close to home, they're
Right.
not going to have to travel as much. And because we know what they ideally want, we can still reach out. And we filled many, many positions that way over the years by knowing who wanted to work where and with a particular type of industry or company. we were able to get those candidates. And it's amazing how the network, and that's why I've told my team from the get-go, from that, the second day we were in this lockdown, I said, you guys need to continue recruiting
Right.
because we need to continue our network. We need to continue talking to candidates. Um, because once we get the go ahead again, we'll
Yeah.
have them. We just say, hey, we have this, we have that for you.
Yeah.
And that makes such a difference. And sometimes we will win over another recruiter just because of that relationship that we've had with them.
Yeah, I think there's something that you're saying here that's really important when you said that when your team is reaching out to candidates, they might be venting, but they're also really grateful that you're connecting with them. And that to me is a really important message that even HR and hiring managers should think about, is that in the midst of a pandemic, when things feel chaotic, if someone takes the time to reach out and say, you know what, I want to connect with you, it makes the people who are at home, who are job seekers, who may be feeling uncertain, it makes them feel like they
Yeah.
matter. And so in this relationship business, cultivating that connection and saying, yeah, you matter to me, even in the midst of this craziness, I want to talk to you, that goes a long way, doesn't it, in the long run?
It does definitely help for us anyway. It has made a difference. By knowing, do you know how many times I get calls from clients that say, hey, I have a need for this type of position. Do you know anyone? And already I have people in the back of my head. I don't know if they're available. I don't know if they're still around, but I have people always on top of mind for me to say, hey, I can reach out because we do this daily. I've always said to my team, you need to see who's on the market today, who's looking, reach out, connect. We may not have anything for them today, but in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we might have the right opportunity for them. But
Yeah.
it's important to keep that relationship going. It's the same thing with the candidates. Very often they'll come back to us. They'll reach out again. They found a position, say, hey, I'm on the market now. Keep your eyes open. Perfect. We like that. That's how we get that network. And that's how we can be successful with our placements with our clients.
Right. Okay. Amazing. So let's pivot a little bit from this part of it to remote working, because that's a very hot topic now. There are many workers and many companies that are now shifting from office to suddenly finding themselves having to do things remotely. But you and your team have been working remotely for several years now. So given your experience, could you share with our audience just some of the things that you feel could make working from home easier, and then maybe like lessons you've learned along the way as you've managed a remote team together, for example?
Mhm. Yeah, we've been doing this for a few years now. Although we still have the office, we can still go. We meet up, at the office when we need to.
Yeah.
Um, but I find that one thing that once we've had the entire team shift to home, I've noticed they were actually working more. They were more smarter about how they worked. Yes, they could do a laundry, here and there. They cut their vegetables. I have one of my staff that tells me during a lunch break, she cuts her, vegetables and get dinner ready. It's fine. You know what? For me, at the end of the day, is that did she get her work done?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I find that they start early, they finish later, they check stuff after hours, which is not my expectations. They know that. But I find that they tend to work smarter and they're not as tired.
Right.
It's draining to go from the office in traffic. Once you arrive, you're already a bit tired and you have to start your day. At home, they could be in their pajama pants, turning up their laptop, get going, and respond to email.
Right.
It seems like it's been easy, and our phone system has been online as well, our email, and it's been working great. um, One thing that they do share with me on a daily basis, they give me a quick report at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Very simple and quick, so I have a snapshot of what has happened during the day. Nothing long, because I want bullet point. I want to be able to see what has happened. Although our system allows us to put notes and keep track of everything, we document every single conversation, every email that comes in. It's documented in our database. Um, but sometimes I don't have time to read all these notes, right?
Yeah.
So they email me at the end of the day, and just a quick, simple point. So at the end of the day, for me, when I look at it, I
Mhm.
can just respond back with a quick question if I need clarification.
Yes.
And that's really simple. And then they move on to the next day. So it's been really good. And when this crisis that we're in today happened, there's been no operational change for us.
Right. Yeah. That's the benefit, right?
No
That you've been.
difference. They
Yeah.
went on with their day. We didn't have to make any adjustments whatsoever.
Yeah.
I've spoken with a few clients last week who said to me the first week was a big, like trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful that I had made the jump years ago into remote.
Yeah.
Um, but the office is available.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it's not like we have no office, it's still there. But it's just that sometimes it's been really useful to have to be at home, right? I
Yeah.
find that my staff is more rested
Yeah.
and actually they're more productive.
And so this is a really interesting thing. I think this is a lesson that many of us are learning in this process, is just how much we can do remotely. Like sometimes it's mindset and what we're used to that feels like, oh my gosh, but that you've talked about how your staff feels so connected, and what I'm hearing from you here is that you give your staff the freedom and the independence and responsibility to do what they need to do at home. And so that almost turns into a perk, but then you also have built-in accountability. So even like quick little reports so that everybody's on the same page, you know what all of your staff are doing, and you can sort of navigate the business from that perspective. It also gives them built-in accountability that they need to show that the work that they do. So everything becomes habitual that way to optimize the business, right? So that's
Yeah.
really what people want to look for. Yeah.
And because I have been in their shoes, I have been a recruiter, I have done their job.
Yeah.
I know how much work it takes to get to a certain time, from the time we get the job order to the time that we interview and get candidates, etc.
Yeah.
Um, so I can understand, and they know that I manage by results. So I know that they're supposed to be doing X, Y, Z, and that will generate results. If they don't have results, then we need to know, okay, what's happening? Is it the position? Is it the requirements? Is it the client's not responding? So really, it's been really, it's easy for me to see because I have been in their shoes. I find it's harder for hiring managers, for instance, that are out there that never done someone's job. It's harder for them to manage them. I've always said to everyone, I truly believe that a manager needs to have done everybody's job to fully understand. And I think some of the really successful business owners and also large corporation, sometimes I find that people that are on top, they've done those jobs.
Right.
We have stories
Yeah.
there's so many stories out there.
Yeah.
They've done everybody's job, so they understand
Yeah.
um, what it takes to be in certain positions. So I think for me, because I have that perspective and I understand, I trust them. I
Yeah.
know they'll get it done, because if they don't, there won't be a result.
Right.
So it's as simple as that. It's basic math, really.
You're right. So, okay, let's talk about leadership from that perspective. You talked earlier about how it's important to almost over communicate in a time of crisis like we're experiencing now. You have been managing a team through ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and through different crises, and even today. From a leadership perspective, what tips would you give to your clients who are in a position where they're leading and managing teams? How can we motivate and inspire our teams right now where so many people are feeling uncertainty and fear?
hmm Um, I think the first thing is to be open and honest about what's happening with the company, what's happening with the finance, if that's where it's at with your organization, what you may need to do, although it might not be all, rosy and pink.
Yeah.
It's important to be upfront. People understand, they know they would expect in some cases to be let go, but sometimes it's not even part of the question. So you have to reassure them if that's not the directions you're taking.
Right.
I think you also need to make sure that you educate them as to what steps you're taking as a company
Right.
to move forward. But I really think communication is key here, especially right now as to what's happening. I think the fear with a lot of employees and candidates is because they just don't know. They have no sense as to where the company is going, or their employer is not sharing anything with them, right? So
Mhm.
it's one of the things I find that's more reassuring. So communication to me is the number one thing I would say.
Right. And so that means being honest and being transparent. And yeah, things are not perfect. And yes, things might be scary, but being able to share that vulnerability as a company allows people to feel like they're in it together and they're not isolated by themselves, which is
Hmm.
usually where fear festers, right? It gets to be very
Yeah, exactly. And asking them what they would do. Like for us, we've had a few meetings already as to what we should be doing, any ideas that they come up with, and I've told them right now that it's the time to train. So any kind of online training they can attend to
right.
do it. I have done it myself. They're doing it because we don't have time normally, right? And there's
Yeah.
so many people doing online training right now. And I think it's good for them to do that now
Right.
when we have the time, but also the fact that they feel that they can do it. I've given them permission.
Yes.
It's okay to do that.
And I love too that you're walking the talk. Like if you're saying to your team, you can take online training, there's value for it, you're doing it yourself too. So you're showing them that everybody is collectively working on this together.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Amazing. So what I'm hearing from you overall is that as hiring managers and HR managers in this moment of crisis, the most important thing is to remember the context we're in. So yes, this came out of nowhere and we're paused for a moment, potentially economically, and we're isolating in our homes, but
Hmm.
this too shall pass. So it's really important to give people a sense of normalcy, to continue doing business, to continue cultivating those relationships, because the long game means that when things unpause and we can return to that new normal, I guess, so it's not returning, but yeah,
Hmm.
going to the new normal, that hiring managers and HR professionals that are preparing today and who are continuing to work and laying the groundwork will be ahead of the game at that point.
Yeah.
You've also said that French bilingual talent is still as competitive as ever. So it's really important to cultivate those relationships. So even if you can't hire at the moment, it's still important to reach out. It's still important to make those connections with people. When we talked about remote working, you talked about how it's really important to focus on giving people freedom and responsibility and
Yeah.
building in accountability as a team. And
Yes.
then finally, I think I love what you said is that, communication is critical to inspire and motivate people. And even if we don't know what's happening, overshare and tell people we don't know what's happening, but we're
Yeah.
in it together and we're talking it through, right? So that nobody feels isolated in their jobs when they might already be feeling isolated at home.
Yeah. And I think it's okay for a leader to share that they're also vulnerable. I don't see it as a weakness myself to say, "Hey, I'm scared too. I don't know what's happening."
Right.
Um, but at the same time, giving them the real clear picture of what is going on is important. So sharing that you're scared, it's not going to make you weaker. I think they're going to see it as a strength, that you're comfortable and confident enough to share that information. And I think my team knows that I'm really outspoken, and I'm going to say it as it is, right? So they
Yeah.
understand. So I'll share it as it is, and I think they're smart enough to know what we're going through.
And we'd rather
Everybody.
know, right? Like nobody
Yeah.
wants to be sheltered and
No.
kept in the dark. We all would rather know, like, give us the
Yeah.
goods. Yeah.
Yeah.
My background in public relations and marketing has always been from a crisis communications perspective. I'm like, what's the worst case scenario? Give me the worst case and let's give me the best case and we'll work across that spectrum.
I think we're in the
You know?
worst case now.
It's true. It's so true. But like you said, just knowing it is important. And so I
Yeah.
love that point that you said, is that vulnerability is not weakness. It's actually a strength,
Yeah.
especially in this time, right? Because nobody wants to be kept in the dark. We all want to know, and we want to have that conversation together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really great stuff, Julie. Thank you so much for this. I think
Well,
that
thank you.
a lot of us are benefiting from your wisdom. And so appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care.
Thanks.